Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 things you should consider before quitting your job. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I went through the exact same thing early in my career, and this ultimately led to the failure of my startup. And so I'm going to be talking about in today's video all the things that went through my head and what are some of the mistakes that I made to help you avoid these mistakes if you are at this point right now. Now, the title of this video is a little deceiving because ideally you should be in the early stages of launching your startup before you even get to this decision point. And so, bearing that in mind, I'm going to talk about if you were to leave your job to start a company, what are the decision criteria that you need to make and that you need to evaluate, and what can get you from employee to entrepreneur. The first mistake I see people make is leaving their job too soon. And this is one that I also made as well. I left my job when my startup was really in the concept or idea phase. There was not an actual product and I didn't have any sales coming in. And that is so tough to leave a full-time job and go to a startup where you are making $0. And unless you have any funding, you are really relying on your savings or bootstrapping a product from the ground up. This makes it super hard to get started, and you are leaving the safety and security of the full-time job. Now, that's not to say that this hasn't worked out for other entrepreneurs in the past. It is a little riskier, there is a lot of downside to it, and you are starting from the bottom, which makes it tough. Like Mark Cuban said, sales cures all. I'll let him take it away right here.
I'm gonna give you some quick and dirty rules that every entrepreneur needs to be aware of. Number 1, sales cures all. There's never been a company in the history of companies that's ever succeeded without sales. Anybody who's ever told you, don't worry about sales, you can grow it and then worry about sales later, they're lying to you. They will fail, you will fail. You have to be able to sell. And do you know who the biggest salesperson in your company has to be? You.
And the ideal state is to leave if you have at least 2 years of savings. And what you want to do is calculate your monthly expenses, tally up what that's going to be, and span that across 2 years. And can your startup either generate that revenue, or do you have enough savings to last 2 years if you don't get any traction right away? If you don't have enough for 2 years, that's okay. Hopefully you know an angel investor or some type of investor, whether it be family or friends, that can help you out along the way. Or there's nothing wrong with bootstrapping this while keeping your full-time job. But this is decision number 1 that you need to make, is whether you have enough money or sales coming in from your startup to last at least 2 years. The second mistake I see wannabe entrepreneurs make is that they don't leave their job soon enough. They value the safety and security of their job, but they are in a good spot because their startup is making money and has gained traction. Now at this point, entrepreneurs need to decide whether making the leap to full-time startup, full-time founder is worth it in the long run. Are they going to provide incremental value to their startup? It is a tough spot to be in, to leave that safety and security, but you really need to evaluate if your company is gaining traction, does have sales, does it make sense to jump and do it full time, and are you going to see a return on your time invested and the value come back to you? It's hard to do both at the same time, and at this point you need to decide, is it worth pursuing or is it just going to be a side venture? Now the third thing you need to decide is, what are the business goals of your startup? Are you going to take the Reid Hoffman approach of blitz scaling, or are you going to be more on the Tim Ferriss side of the 4-hour work week? Now either side has their pros and cons. There's nothing wrong with deciding to go 100% full-time and treat this startup as your own company and try to scale it as large as possible. But there's also nothing wrong with keeping it a side venture, dedicating a small amount of time per week to it, and then seeing some passive income or some sales start to funnel in while keeping your full-time job. There's no rule that says you have to be 100% dedicated to your startup. If you are, more power to you. You need to put all your time and energy into it if you want to scale it to millions or even billions of dollars. However, if you only want to put in time during the week or on weekends, whenever you have your spare time, that is more than power to you, and a lot of people do that successfully. Now the next thing to consider is time management. Some people are great at it, others aren't so great. The ones that are great at it can manage 2 jobs working simultaneously. Others, that is super difficult to do, and you need to decide if you are one of those people that needs to be all in on either your full-time job or your startup. If you aren't, it really leads to, quite frankly, people half-assing both jobs, which you don't want to do. your boss at your full-time job will surely notice that you're not meeting expectations, and your startup will not gain any traction. Now at this time, you need to understand if you have reached your breaking point and have to dedicate 100% of your efforts to your startup if you want to still keep that going. And if you don't, you're likely going to be stretched too thin and your performance will suffer at your full-time job and your startup will never gain any traction. And similar to my last point, burnout is a real thing. It is tough to work those two jobs. It's tough to have that 9 to 5 and then that 5 to 9. You start working 16 to 18 hours a day, and to sustain that over a long period isn't going to be realistic. And so you need to evaluate if you do want to keep both jobs, how long you could successfully keep that up for, or are you going to reach a point in time, and this could either be time-based, or if you want to look at it as a startup goal-based, whether you hit X number of dollars in sales that says, I want to make the leap from entrepreneur, I want to make the leap from employee to entrepreneur. Employee to entrepreneur. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, you get the gist. So those are the quick 5 things you need to consider before quitting your job. I made some of those mistakes myself. I left my job too early when it was still in the concept idea phase and I didn't have any sales. I also was stretching myself too thin and trying to make that decision between whether I can get my startup off the ground or continue to keep working full time. And at 23, 24 years old, I suffered from burnout for the first time and it left me depressed and I had a lot of anxiety from it. So avoid these mistakes that I've made, and really when you are making that jump from employee to entrepreneur, got it this time, you want to consider that so that you are as successful as possible and your startup has the best chance. Now, you don't have to build a $100 million business, side income, side ventures. It is perfectly fine. A lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with working on the weekends or during the week to make a little extra income. But if you do want to take that leap, good luck, more power to you, and I'll see you in the next video.